Good morning. Welcome. I'm Laureen Garraud, Director of the TV Division at Reed Meadham. This is a very special session this morning. We're very proud to present it. All day here at MIPTV, you negotiate deals, you make connections, form partnerships. It's a business of television, and of course that's great. But as well as making money, TV has an enormous power to do good. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome today the United Nations Special Envoy for Education, Gordon Brown. As well as being a former Prime Minister of the UK, Mr. Brown was also the country's longest-serving Chancellor of the Exchequer. To talk to us today about the global crisis in education and the role that TV on all its screens can play in resolving it, please join me in welcoming Mr. Gordon Brown.
Thank you very much. Good of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. It is my privilege in my capacity as United Nations Envoy for Global Education to be here in Cannes today at the world's premier television festival. I gather the best informed audience in the world and to talk to you about one of the great civil rights questions of our time, but also one of the great levers of economic success, to discuss the countdown to the dawn of universal education throughout the world, and how, with your support, we could create a private $1 billion global education fund to get every child in the world to school for the first time in our history. By way of introduction to what is the Education First initiative, I would like to play you a short message that has been specially recorded for you, the delegates of MIPTV, by the Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon. And he is a living embodiment of the power of global action on education to transform lives, especially the lives of people born in the direst of circumstances, educated in war-torn Korea, educated often just in the open air without even a classroom to sit in, relying on school books donated by the United Nations. On one of these books, he told me he had written on it a message. This is a book donated to you by the United Nations. Work hard, and by doing so, you will repay your debt to the United Nations of the world, something he has done. Secretary General.
I'm pleased to address this MIPTV gathering on your 50th anniversary in Cannes. TV is a fantastic tool for education, and education is what this world needs. Today, some 60 million children are not in school. Many more live without acquiring the most basic skills. I grew up in Korea just after the war. We studied under trees. Our books were provided by the United Nations. We did not have much, but we believed passionately that education would help us recover and prosper. Education helped me become Secretary General of the United Nations. I have met many people in dire circumstances. No matter how hungry or poor, they still know the importance of education for their children. That is why I launched the Global Education First initiative. We want all children in school so they can learn and become global citizens. My special envoy, Gordon Brown, is working to expand partnerships for real results. We need your help over the next 1,000 days of action to reach our goals by the end of 2015. You have the power to tell stories far and wide, to transform learning in the classroom, to inspire action, and to help us create a movement for global education. I urge you to join us in a campaign to make sure no child is denied the right to quality education. I wish you much success and look forward to your creative ideas. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, in addition to Ban Ki-moon, in the next few minutes or so, we will be hearing from a panel of 5 extraordinary people drawn from 4 continents, on the subject we're dealing with, to put education within the reach of everyone. Each panelist has a unique perspective. They have a personal story to tell of the vital importance of education, the transformative power of learning. We will hear from the parent whose child was shot in the head because she, Malala, dared to go to school. We will hear from a young girl who climbed every mountain and crossed every frontier because she had the courage to want to finish her education. We'll hear from the decision makers of multinational businesses who understand why it makes sense for them to support and invest in education. We'll hear from the man who quit his job at Microsoft to build 15,000 libraries in the world's poorest nations. And we'll hear stories about different countries in the world that some of you will have visited and some of you will never, ever see. I was in Sudan only a few months ago, the youngest country in the world, South Sudan, with some of the oldest problems. I met, first of all, in a village outside Juba, the capital of South Sudan, a group of young women. Some of them had been married at 12 or 13 or 14. All of them were teenagers who had children. And when they were asked by me what was their priority, now that they were in this new country with enormous challenges, yes, they needed shelter. Yes, they needed food because there was a famine. Yes, they needed security. But most of all, they told me they wanted for their young children the chance of schooling. And then I went to the village school in that area of Juba. And the village school was a hut. It was a one-room hut with no floor other than grass, with 20 children sitting there being educated. One mother told me that she had to choose which of her twin sons she was able to send to that school. So difficult was it, because there was no chance for many of them to get education. And what I remember about this school is outside, there was a porthole in the classroom, and you could see outside 20 children in the school, 50 or so children standing outside, looking in at something they could never have, because 1 million children in South Sudan out of 3 million don't even have the chance of education. If you're a 14 or 15-year-old girl, there are only 400 in education, whereas in a comparative country of 10 million people, there'd be 25,000. And then I went to Abuja, just outside the capital, Abuja of Nigeria, to another village school. And I saw children there, and just as I arrived at the school, funnily enough, a cortege of cars arrived. And there was Bono, who arrived at the same time at this school in Abuja, quite by chance, with Brian Williams of NBC. And we went into this classroom in Abuja, and you do the usual thing. You ask, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you had the same answers you'll get in any part of the world. The same answers. They want to be teachers, they want to be pilots, they want to be engineers, they want to be nurses, they want to be doctors. Nobody wanted to be my job, a politician, by the way. Nobody, to Bono's surprise, actually wanted to be a pop singer either, and I think he was quite shocked. But you know, that school in Abuja, right in the center of Nigeria, corrugated iron roof falling apart, 3 kids to a desk, if there was desks, because many classrooms, people just sat on the floor, the school falling apart, and up the road, a madrasas had been started by an extremist Islamic organization trying to attract children from that school, showing that we have a security challenge to meet, not just in Mali, Somalia, and not just in DRC, but right in the heart of Africa, in Nigeria, where children are being attracted away from schools that we do not invest in and being indoctrinated by extremist ideology. So education is a powerful weapon for opportunity for a child. It is the means by which a community can escape poverty. It is the means by which a country can break the cycle of economic failure. It is a means by which the world can deliver to people the promise of globalization, that everybody should have the chance to realize their talents. It is also the means by which we can provide security for ourselves and for the world in the future. But let us just see from the film I'm just going to show you the scale of the problem that even in 2013 we still have to face. Let's see this film.
Years ago, we became the first generation in history to send a man to the moon. Less than 20 years ago, we saw the invention of the internet. 10 years ago, we finally sequenced the human DNA. In 1,000 days, we can achieve something even more momentous. By the end of 2015, we can become the first generation in history to send every single child on the planet to school. 61 million children. 61 million exploited. Out of school because they are child laborers, many forced into bonded labor. Often in hazardous work, exposing them to risk of injury. The violated, child brides in marriages they did not choose. coerced into lives of isolation and desolation, unthinkably early pregnancy. The list goes on. The brutalized, conscripted as child soldiers and commanded to kill. Boy and girl refugees, camp children, the disabled, the marginalized. 4 million of them blind and not in school. These forgotten 61 million have lost the opportunity to learn and grow. But they've lost something more. They've lost their school days. They have lost their childhood. They have lost hope. Almost. There is hope if we can pressure all nations to make education for every child the first priority and a universal right, regardless of borders. Hope if we ensure schooling for children with disabilities and for the blind. Hope if we can create together a global ladder of opportunity that starts with a place at school and leads to qualifications and a job. Hope if we stand as a united, unwavering force for change.
When I grow up, I want to be a teacher. I want to be a lawyer. An accountant. A musician. A nurse. When I grow up, I want to be a president.
But there is so much work to do. Every single child is special. Every girl and boy unique. Every infant precious. We are at a crossroads, a stalled point. No progress from one year to the next. The numbers out of school in Africa are on the rise. We have stopped sending children to school. If nothing changes soon, we are looking at a world where the children of today become the unemployed and unemployable of tomorrow. A world without school is a world without hope. 61 million children out of school. When will they ever learn? Many nations who must come to their aid. When will they ever learn? Our 1,000-day mission for universal education by the end of 2015 starts now. Visit educationenvoy.org right now and learn how you can help make every one of these 1,000 days count.
So there we are. Thank you. There we are, exactly 1,000 days away from that deadline. The deadline that we actually, as a world, set for ourselves to get every child to school by the last day of December 2015. And so I just want to set out our timetable, the milestones on our way to educate every child. On July the 12th, 900 days from that D-Day, the school day where every child is to be at school, 4,000 children from 194 countries around the world will assemble in New York to hear the first public speech since her attempted assassination by Malala Yousafzai, and to ask the world leaders as 4,000 young people to deliver a simple plan for every child to have the opportunity of school by December 2015. 100 days later, just over 2 years from that D-Day, at the United Nations General Assembly of 2013, we will assemble in New York 1,000 of the world's top business leaders, and like young people, they too will be asked to pledge to become full partners in the delivery of education for all. Exactly 2 years away in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, just before the anniversary of Malala's shooting, 194 countries will be brought together by the President of Brazil, Dilma, and there they will pledge to put in place laws to abolish the evils of child labor and child trafficking, practices that prevent 15 million children, a quarter of the world's out-of-school population, from attending school. And we will also bring together all those parties concerned about child marriage to ensure that the laws that are in place to abolish child marriage are properly policed. And then 500 days to go. Around a year and a half before our deadline of December 2015, we'll have agreed the building plan to create the 4 million extra classrooms we need by the end of 2015. And then 450 days to go at the UN Assembly meetings of 2014, we will have World Teachers' Day, a call for action for every country to put teacher recruitment plans in place to find the 2 million extra teachers we need. And then 150 days to go to the deadline. If we have not succeeded, we will on Malala Day 2015 name and shame the worst performers, those who are failing to deliver on the promise of universal education. So why all this energy? Why all this effort? Why the urgency here and now? Because right now, let me tell you, almost unnoticed, virtually unpublicized, one of the great civil rights struggles of our times is being fought out in our midst. If you're looking for the great untold human stories of tragedy and courage in our era, then they are here in their millions. In the 1960s, the civil rights battle was fought out about racial equality in the United States. Today, you need only look across the Indian subcontinent, in Afghanistan, in villages and towns in Africa, and you will find that those people who are supporters of universal girls' education are being threatened, assaulted, bombed, in some cases murdered, as they stand up to terrorist-inspired organizations hell-bent on closing schools and intimidating teachers and children. Last week, a 41-year-old teacher woman was gunned down 200 meters from her all-girls school where she taught near the border of Afghanistan and Pakistan. The next day, on a Saturday morning in the urban city of Karachi, while pupils and teachers were celebrating their annual prize-giving day, a school principal was murdered and 3 pupils badly injured. And this wave of violence has seen 250 schools closed down in Pakistan alone. But the silent majority in Pakistan is refusing to remain silent any longer. Just as in 1960s America, when unspoken resentment against discrimination slowly transformed into a wave of dignified public defiance, more and more people are saying that neither bombs, nor bullets, nor arson attacks, nor in one case, poisoning of girls will deter them from sending girls to school. And what is unique is that for the first time, it is a civil rights movement pushed forward not just by adults, but by girls themselves, fighting not just for emancipation against subjugation, but for their personal empowerment, the chance to be as girls what they can be, and proving perhaps far more assertive in standing up for their rights than the adults they once trusted, perhaps for too long, to defend them. As you listen to the stories I'm just about to show you on a film, think then of some of the things that your TV company could do. Support a global hotline for any girl or boy in bondage that they can contact and ensure that they have support when they are trafficked. Run a campaign to support what you'll see in the film, child marriage-free zones, which are being set up in many countries. And then think of how we can raise awareness and raise cash for education. How perhaps together we could create a $1 billion fund that would secure, by the expenditure of $1 billion, 10 million places at school for boys and girls. Now, television is an endless source of new ideas. And what your ideas would be for a $1 billion fund would be exciting. But how about a global variety show to be broadcast for the first time in every single country at the same time? A global talent show open to everyone in the world. A global Children's Day that matches the Mother's Days and the Father's Days we have in most countries. And on that Children's Day, perhaps a global song adopted for the day, a global short story read in every school, perhaps written by J.K. Rowling or someone, a global soap opera performed by children in their own languages in one day in that year. What will be the brilliant ideas that can both raise awareness and cash to deal with the problems that you're just about to see? The future is hers.
This is Rodney, lured away from home with empty promises and then captured by a slave master. Rodney was forced to work as a domestic servant in a big house in Delhi, India for no money. While other girls attended school, Rodney, gasping for education, scrubbed floors. But Rodney escaped thanks to the global march against child labor and is now at school being educated. The future is hers again. Rodney is just one of 7 million girl victims of child labor under 14. 500,000 are trafficked every year. But like Rodney, they are fighting back. This is Monufa from Bangladesh. She was about to enter into a loveless marriage at the tender age of 15. But she was saved by a remarkable group of children called the Wedding Busters, who went to her house and confronted her parents. These children are a leading force in the development of child marriage-free zones in a country where 66% of girls are married before the age of 18. Now, they resist being forced into early marriages by girls standing united with each other. And this is Malala Yousafzai. the girl the Taliban tried to stop going to school with bullets to the face and neck as she traveled by bus to a school far from home. The Taliban burnt down her local school too. But Malala survived and is fighting back, leading the global campaign for the right of all children to go to school. There is a new superpower in the world, the power that comes from girls standing with girls to fight for their right to opportunities denied women throughout history. It is the new hope in the world, and Malala's efforts have already forced a change in Pakistani law. We have until the end of 2015, just 1,000 days, to end an injustice that goes back centuries. 61 million children. 32 million of them girls who need the right to attend school. If we do nothing, 500 million of today's generation of girls will never complete their schooling. Some will say it's impossible. This courageous new global movement of girls believes any other result is unthinkable. This new movement of girls is led by the Malalas, Ratnis, and Manufas, and thousands who have joined and will join them. Today, we celebrate the girl who refuses to accept the age-old prejudices, rules, and discriminations. This girl will prevail and change our world for good. The future is hers.
Now, for medical reasons, Malala cannot be with us this morning. She's still recovering in Birmingham from the operations that she has faced, and will speak for the first time on July the 12th on Malala Day in New York. But we are fortunate to have with us to talk about what's happening in both Pakistan and elsewhere on girls' education, someone who is equally brave, someone who has had to stand up against threats against his life, someone who is himself a head teacher as well as running a school, someone who is experienced in teaching girls in his native country of Pakistan. He's been appointed by the Pakistan government to be their envoy in education, appointed by the United Nations to also be their envoy in education. I ask you to welcome a very brave man indeed, Malala's father. I ask you to welcome Ziauddin Yousufi to speak to us today. Thank you. And just before Ziauddin talks, please listen to a short message that Malala has sent for us today.
Today, I want to tell you about my dream. My dream was to see all the girls, all the boys to go to their schools. And this is my mission. And we should not wait for someone else to come. We should not wait for someone else to come and raise our voice. We should do it by ourselves. We should believe in ourselves. Yes, we can do it. And one day you would see that all the girls would be powerful, all the girls would be going to school. And it is possible only by our struggle. It is possible only when we raise our voice.
Ziauddin, you must be very proud indeed of your daughter. How is she keeping? How is she faring?
Thank you very much. She is very fine. And she is rehabilitating very fastly. She is fit physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Yep. And she is going to continue to campaign for girls' education, and so are you.
Of course. I think first her campaign was local, now it's global. And she has the same determination, the same commitment towards education, and wants every child to be in school.
And what are the kind of problems that Malala's friends and others are facing as you faced in Pakistan before you had to leave?
I think, first of all, I should thank the MIPTV and all the important people who are here. And I want to share with them a little bit of the story and the role of the media, which we have seen in the valley of Swat. Swat is in the north of Pakistan. And when Talibanization started in 2003 and 4, it just started from an FM radio. And the top targets of Taliban were education, polio administration of the polio drops. And the third target were TV sets, audio, video cassettes, to burn them. So they knew the importance of media, and the only media tool they spared, that was radio, because the mullah was speaking himself on that. So it was in 2007, 8, and 9 when there was such a horror, and the militants spread such kind of, fear in the hearts of the people that nobody could speak. And we saw a rush of the TV correspondents from all over the world, but they could not find someone to speak to them. There were few who could talk about the real situation of the Valley of Swat, about the blasting of schools, about the ban on girls and ladies to go to the markets, about even the flogging of the girls. So I think we were one of the few who spoke, and we spoke the truth, what was happening. And when our, opinion leaders were killed, they were assassinated, and they were slaughtered, and majority of them had to be silent. So media helped us a lot. And this small child who was 12 years old, when she blogged for BBC, and then when she volunteered herself for New York Times documentary, it had a massive effect all over the world. And we were able to convey our message to the world that, oh, the world, the privileged people, you come, we are suffering. Our basic human rights are being violated. And that is a great effect. So I myself have seen that how much powerful people we are here, and how can they change things. So that one girl, her documentaries, her blog conveyed our message to the world, and the world was there to support us. So I know the effective role of the media.
So in our case. We can say TV, often criticized, should be praised for the way that it is reported the denial of girls' rights in Pakistan, and it is the means by which the demonstrations have been possible and continued. Now, what else would you like the media to do to draw attention to the issues, or perhaps help us find a solution of getting girls to school?
I think that, as you said in your keynote speech, that we have 1,000 days. And for 1,000 days, it's a great challenge that we have 61 million children. Let's think for a while. If 61 million children are not properly educated, if they are not given standard education, which imparts global values of tolerance, love, and respect, these 61 million children will not sit idle. These 61 million children will be in the hands of the groups of militants, and they will be at the mercy of the people who will destroy their future. And these 61 million children, if they are not brought to schools, then they will be indoctrinated. Yeah. They will be dogmatized. And I usually say one thing, which I want to share with these honorable people, young and old, all are here, that an indoctrinated group, an indoctrinated individual is more dangerous than illiterate individual. An illiterate society is less dangerous than indoctrinated society, than a dogmatized society. Yeah. So if you don't educate them, they would be dogmatized. They would be indoctrinated to kill themselves and to kill other people. So it's very much important. It's very much important. And media can play a pivotal role in it. I will simply say, Gordon, that they can, now I look to media as the protector of the rights of the people. Especially in my country, I praise my media, my local media. Because whenever there is a problem, for example, there is a deficiency of school, media stands there. If there is a ghost school, media is there. If there is the problem of the deficiency of teachers, media project it. So media is the protector of the rights of the people, especially in the countries, you always mention 6, 7 countries. The majority of the children belong to the countries of the South Asia and Africa. So I think in these countries, media can play a vital role for the protection of the rights of the people, because the government institutions are very poor, are very weak, and they have a very great role. So I think that they can pressurize the governments to invest more and more in the education. They can persuade parents and they can educate children.
And in your province, KPK,
yeah,
there are 700,000 children not at school. There are 600,000 girls of the 700,000 who are the not at school population. To get them to school needs money to be spent. Pakistan does not have the money itself. How can the international community and television companies and other companies around the world help? Do we need the Global Fund we've talked about? Do we need the Children's Day?
In my part of the country, in Pakistan, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and FATA, federally administered tribal areas, we have 2 big issues. The most dangerous and the most alarming one is the security of the students, security of the teachers, and security of the institutions.
Yes.
I will tell you that more than 1,500 schools have been blasted till this day. And every week a new school is blasted. And after the tragic assassination attempt of my daughter, we have 5 more teachers killed in one of the districts. Then 1 teacher, as you mentioned in your keynote speech. And then a principal of the girls' school was killed. And then in that incident, they hurled a grenade to the gathering of the children. And one small child, hardly 8 or 9 years old, Tahira, she died in hospital. One got her backbone damaged, and she will be disabled for lifelong. So Malala's story, it has become a very famous story globally. But this is not, in Pakistan, it is happening to so many people. It is not the story of one girl. It is the story of many, many. We may be the few who spoke, but we may be the few of one of the few who spoke, but we are one of the millions who are suffering. So I think the most important thing to give security to the teachers, to the students, and protect the institutions. And the second important thing, that the destruction which has been done, it needs a lot of funds. Government is unable to reconstruct all the schools or to provide quality teachers and other, necessary facilities to the schools. I think not only Pakistan, not only about Pakistan, but in the rest of the world, where there is the need of the funds, I think the privileged people, it's their duty from, a global duty from their communities and a duty from the God as well, that they should help the underprivileged.
Thank you very much. I'm going to bring in, can you thank Ziauddin? He's going to come back and speak in a few minutes. I'm going to bring in, this is not just happening in Asia, but also happening in Africa, and there's a huge amount we can do to help girls and boys in difficult situations in Africa as well. And I'm delighted to bring to this gathering today a young girl, Tirivashi. She comes from Zambia. She has become a youth ambassador for Plan International, but she has been campaigning for the right of girls to get education for all her teenage life. And she will tell us in a minute some of the struggles that she has had to face to make that possible. I ask you to welcome Tirivashi. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Come and meet Ziauddin. Now, Tirivashi, tell us your story. You've just finished school. How big a struggle was it to get the qualifications that will allow you, I think, to be a nurse? Is that right?
Yes. where I come from a village. In that village, the time I started school, it was very difficult for people to go to school since it's a bushy, something like that. The time I started my first grade, I used to go with friends who were about 6, but others ended up dropping out of school because of the distance and other things that used to happen. Our route was not very clear, such that when you're going to school, you would meet this boy who used to mock us. He used to come with his dogs, and he says, if you want to pass here, you should pass running, such that my dogs are going to bite you. So such things used to happen. And the other thing that used to happen is that my dad was very strict, and he's still strict. He used to do this to me when I don't go to school. For example, there's this day I didn't go to school on a Friday. He gave me a simple punishment. He told me that you're not going to eat on Friday. Saturday, you're not going to eat. Sunday, you're not going to eat. On Monday, when you come back from school, that's the time you're going to eat.
That's tough.
Yeah, that was tough. So I was forced to go to school. And he was very strict, such that he wanted everybody to be going home, to be going to school. When you don't go to school, you are going to annoy him.
So the distances are a problem, the quality of the roads, pressure from boys not to go to school. What happened to some of your girlfriends? Did they get married young? Did they leave school? Did they not ever turn up at school?
Yeah, what used to happen is that if you drop out of school, you would either get married. If you don't, then you'll be somebody's maid. You'll be working for someone. You'll be given jobs like you need to clean the house, you need to cook for the master's kids. You
and
need
that would
to
be as young as 12,
yeah.
13, 14?
Yeah, such stuff.
So it's very difficult for some of your girlfriends to get the education. They don't have the pressure that your father put you under. They don't also have the support of their parents. Is that right?
Yes. If I may say, since where I come from, it's in a village, other people think if their child or their daughter gets married, they would earn from the little that the man who's married their daughter is going to give them. So they would think as though taking their daughter to school, it would be more expensive.
And what do you want to be done? What would you recommend we do to help more of your girlfriends get education? Is it money we need to spend on schools? Is it encouragement by preventing child marriage? Is it stopping domestic labor for 12 and 13-year-olds? What are the things we need to do?
In my opinion, I think if you build other schools near the villages, and also encourage parents to send their children to school, such that if they don't go to school, they should give them a simple punishment, not a punishment whereby you beat your child, you do bad things to the baby, but something which is reasonable.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you would recommend something similar, would you? Tough action to make sure that girls can get to school. Child labor, child marriage.
I think all these issues are a hindrance in girls' education. For example, child marriages. It's very pathetic and very tragic. I think it is agreed upon by UN that till 18 years a child is child. And a child is compelled to give birth to more children. It's unjust. And the same is the case with the social taboos that in many areas, girls' education is not considered as important as boys' education. And when we talk about the empowerment of the girls, I think the only key to the empowerment, because emancipation is not possible without empowerment. And empowerment is not possible without education. Yes. We have an area in Pakistan, it is called Charbagh, a town. And it's famous about its people. They say, "Oh God, give me a son and leave it to me then." So I say that give a girl education and then leave it to her. She will do it. She will know her rights, her duties, and she will get empowered. So all those social tables, for example, for me, it was very, very difficult in my culture to bring one's daughter to media, to talk to media. She was supposed to hide her face from the people. Yes. But we have to take a step. And we have to break all those social taboos which are opposing the basic human rights.
Well, Tiriashi, thank you very much for being with us. I'm going to call you in a second, but there's someone here with us today because the issue is girls' education, and some of the top companies in the world are realizing and backing girls to get schooling. And I'm delighted to welcome from one of the world's luxury brand companies, an incredibly successful company, Gucci. I want to welcome the Chief Marketing Officer of Gucci, Robert Trefus. And he has already launched with his company what's called Chime for Change. It was launched on February the 1st. It is designed to help girls promote girls' rights. And on June the 1st, they're organizing a major concert in London at Twickenham, at which Beyonce and others will perform. I want you to thank Gucci and welcome Robert Trefus to join us. Thank you very much. And this is it. And let's just see what Gucci's plans are. Here's the film that they've set out about what they want to do.
Women. With each new generation, our story has spread wider, become more familiar. The voices telling it, braver, more powerful. But our story is far from over. Thanks to technology, women across the world have the ability to connect in ways unimaginable to those who went before us. Where a placard can become 1 million tweets and a young girl's story global news.
The whole of this country should be ashamed of themselves if they don't stand up for this girl, because she is somebody's daughter.
I want every girl, every child to be educated.
From now on, it will be unremarkable for a woman to win primary state victories. Unremarkable to think that a woman can be the President of the United States, and that is truly remarkable.
Our name is Chime for Change. We are proud to be joining a growing movement of many, the young and the old, women and men, who want to see change. Not one voice, but billions supporting the empowerment of girls and women. Empowerment through health, through education, through justice, where every girl has the right to go to school. Every woman has access to the care she needs. And girls and women everywhere are protected and celebrated.
Giving women the power to save their lives, to save their children's lives, and to give their families the best possible future.
When this happens, it improves their communities, the world.
Hi, my name is Frida Giannini, and I chime for education.
Hi, I'm Beyonce Knowles Carter, and I chime for health.
Hi, my name is Salma Hayek Pinot, and I chime for justice.
Together, we chime for change.
Now, Robert, a brilliant launch. What do you hope to achieve for girls' education? Raising awareness, raising cash?
Yes. Gucci's been involved in the subject of education for around 9 years, working with UNICEF and their Schools for Africa program. And we've seen in that time how a brand like Gucci, which clearly has quite a lot of visibility at a global level, can bring people, organizations, and a focus on an issue. on an issue. And I think the concept of Chime for Change is really about facilitation, of bringing people together on the issue of our day, as you so brilliantly explained. As we're so inspired by young girls who are leading the way. So the idea on June the 1st is to have a catalytic moment in the spirit of Live Aid and Live Earth, a musical event, a celebration that brings people together around the issue, raises awareness and raises funds through our partners Catapult, a fantastic crowdfunding site that is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We've just begun. It's a campaign, it's a community. We hope it becomes a movement, and we are absolutely supporting your mission to achieve the goal by 2015.
Now, Robert, this is a great initiative because you've got a concert, you've got a website that is giving out information, but you've also got a means by which people can give funds.
Yes.
And you're making the promise that all funds are additional, that you are paying the costs of all the administration of the concert and everything
Correct.
else. So anything that people give, and they can give to a number of charities. Can you just explain that?
Correct. So it's an innovation. Crowdfunding is really the future. It's a way of allowing grassroots individuals to give to projects that are dedicated to girls and women in this case. Catapult is dedicated to projects surrounding education, health and justice. You can go on the site through chimeforchange.org. You can go directly to look at the project, select a project that is particularly of concern to you in a particular part of the world, join a team, receive reports, because today we believe that individuals want to know exactly where their contributions are going, and they want to understand the narrative. And very much the focus of Chime for Change is about telling stories through film, through music, through text. We have Marion Pearl, who is a wonderfully inspiring lady herself, who is our managing editor. We have fantastic partners with Facebook, with YouTube. So we're really using the power of modern technology to get the stories out to the world to inspire people, because we believe we're at a tipping point, and we hope that on June the 1st, and I'm going to do a pitch here, for anyone who's in this room who has not yet had the opportunity to meet Kevin Wall, who is our executive producer, or Harvey Goldsmith, both of whom, by the way, were involved in Live Aid and Live Earth. They're here at Cannes working out with broadcasters how to get this concert out to the whole world.
Well, I promised to say Kevin and Harvey are here, so I repeat that. And equally at the same time, could this day be the model for, let's say, television companies all over the world, if they got together agreeing to do a Children's Day that was global? And could we create a children's fund? Because you have shown that you can crowdsource the funding for individual education projects that would make it possible for us to reach our goals?
I believe so. I believe so. I think I really, when we talk about a tipping point, I really feel, and we've seen it because since we launched only a month or so ago, first of all, we have a wonderful advisory board that is growing by the day, and I'm very grateful that you're on the advisory board with Sarah. But we have a wonderful advisory board of crossing backgrounds, cultures, spheres of activity, and now we're beginning to see grassroots people coming together, and they want to be guided in how they can make that difference.
So it's an inspiration, but it's not a one-off. It's something that is a continuing effort to deliver girls' education, and the crowdfunding will continue after the concert.
Absolutely. We keep saying we are, the concert on June the 1st is a moment in time, but we have launched a community and a campaign that is a long-term project leading to the Millennium Goals that you've talked about.
One of the people who's going to benefit from the crowdfunding is someone who's done a remarkable thing. He left Microsoft while one of the great successful founding partners offered, and he set up a charity called Room to Read. He decided that he wanted to ensure that every country in the world that didn't have libraries should have them, and that children who didn't have school books should have them. And in the last few years, he's actually created 15,000 libraries in different parts of the world in this remarkable project that is giving libraries, books, and reading materials to children. And he went to international prominence when Oprah Winfrey featured his work of Room to Read on her own television program. So I'm going to call Robert back in a minute. Thank you very much for Robert for what you're doing. We congratulate you on what Gucci's initiative. And I would like you to welcome now John Wood from Room to Read. Thank you, John.
Good to see you.
Now, John, have a seat and tell us what you think Room to Read can achieve as part of this global initiative to get every girl and boy to school.
Well, I think from my perspective, one of the reasons I quit Microsoft in 1999 to start Room to Read was because I met a headmaster in Nepal. And like many parts of the world, he suffered because he wanted to educate his children. But in this case, he had 450 students showing up every day, but they didn't have a single children's book in the school library. And that struck me as being just a cruel irony. I don't know about many of you, but I grew up with a very well-stocked school library as a middle-class kid. I asked the headmaster why, and he said, well, we have, in Nepal, he said, we are too poor to afford education. But until we have education, we are always going to remain poor. And that struck me as the cruelest irony ever, because how can you tell a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old you've lost the lottery of life? And the situation, as we know, many children are being told they're born in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they therefore will not get educated. They're condemned to a life of ignorance and perpetual poverty from a young age. And there are 780 million people in the world today who are illiterate. 98% are in the developing world. So it's easy for us to ignore that if we live in the developed world, but I think to the comments that everybody else has made on this panel, it's dangerous to ignore that. We can't ignore that. And Gordon, that's one reason that the initiative you're leading for the UN is so important for us to have a loud microphone to say, let's just make it simple. Let's forever end the day any child can be told you were born in the wrong place at the wrong time to the wrong family, and you therefore did not get educated. That idea belongs on a scrap heap of human history.
Now, what more can you do if help was scaled up? Let's say there was an international appeal that covered many countries, television got interested. What could Room to Read achieve?
Well, television's been a really big part, and I salute so many people who are using television as a force for good, because we've had the good fortune to be on Bloomberg and on Katie Couric's show and on Oprah's show, as you mentioned, Gordon. And I think that when television can focus on the solution, I think that's an important thing. I think we talk a lot about the problem. I think what people want to see is here's the solution, here's what it costs, here's how you can do it. We've been very fortunate in the last 5 years. You know, we've opened on average now 6 new libraries a day. We're opening a new library every 4 hours around the developing world. Now, the average library reaches 400 children, so it means that every day, 2,400 children are reached with a new library. And the media's played a very important part in that, and I think one of the key things is that we've tried to always get our message out to say this is not an expensive thing. In the developing world, it's between $100 and $250 per girl per year to support a girl to go to school. It's $5,000 to open a library in a country like India, where 36% of the world's illiterate people live in one country. It's not an expensive proposition to go create this change. You need to have really well-run local NGOs. It can be Plan, it can be Room to Read, it can be dozens and hundreds of others who are out there getting the job done. But I think that what I try to look at as an ex-business person and an MBA is to say, how do you find a scalable solution to this? Because we just have to get past this era where philanthropy stays very small. We have to use our business skills and go and create scale on an absolutely massive time frame. And I don't really think, I'm proud that we're opening 6 libraries a day, but boy, Gordon, it is a drop in the bucket compared to what's needed, because we have literally thousands of communities in entire countries saying, when can you bring Room to Read to Rwanda? When can you bring Room to Read to Pakistan? There's so much need out there, and every day we lose is a day we don't get back.
But I think this is very important because it costs, as you say, $100 in some countries a year to educate a child. That's $2 a week. It is such a small sum of money. There is no technological breakthrough we need. There's no medical innovation. There's no scientific genius that needs to be applied for us to know that we could actually get girls and boys to school, get them books, get them classrooms, get them teachers. And the question, therefore, is how we can scale it up. Robert, you're supporting Room to Read because you think it can be scaled up.
Without a doubt. I've known John quite a while, and we are inspired by his organization. And again, the great thing about this crowdfunding idea is that it is essentially a receptacle into which you put great organizations that people can be inspired by and can support, both in terms of raising money, but also raising awareness of the need and what they're doing to solve the problem. So absolutely.
So people in different ways, you can adopt a teacher, adopt a school, you can adopt a library, you could adopt even just some school books for some kids. People could do all these things, John, as part of your work.
Yeah, I think we've tried to really reach out to everybody from students. We have 8th graders who dedicate their birthday to raising money for girls' education. We have kids who do their bar mitzvah or their bat mitzvah and say they want to reach out and help kids all around the world. And I think the media can play such an important role in that, because I think that so many times we inundate people with the problem, and that's good. You have to raise awareness of the problem. But so many people, I think, are pragmatists, and they want to say, well, what is the solution? I'm really proud that over 20,000 young women like Malala are now supported by Room to Read on long-term education scholarships in 10 countries around the world. We've opened 1,650 schools under an Adopt a Project model, where the community actually comes out and digs the foundation and donates the labor, because so many people in the world today are hungry for their children to get educated. And I think the more the media can help us to tell those stories, we saw it. Can I give the example of, Gordon, you mentioned the Oprah's book drive for Room to Read. When I had the privilege of being on Oprah Winfrey's show about 5 years ago, we worked with her team to say, let's not just make people aware of the situation, let's give them a conduit for action. And it was brilliant, because we devised this thing called Oprah's book drive, and it wasn't Oprah's doing a book drive, send all your used books to a address, and then we have to sort through boxes and boxes. We said, let's publish books in the mother tongue for children, because mother tongue literacy is so important. But the for-profit publishers don't publish books in languages spoken predominantly by poor people, right? If you're a for-profit publisher, you don't publish in Khmer, Lao, Nepalese, Setswana, Zulu, Xhosa, Tamil, Sinhalese, depressingly long list of languages. But we publish now. We're one of the biggest publishers you've never heard of, because we're publishing in these overlooked languages. So anyway, long story short, with Oprah's team, we came up with Oprah's book drive. And at the end of the show, she pointed at her audience and said, $1 equals 1 book, $50 equals 50 books, $100 equals 100 books. Do it now for the love of reading. Well, we had upgraded to 8 dedicated servers at roomtoread.org to handle the influx that they had promised us. And it was brilliant, because within 60 seconds of her saying that, all 8 servers had to be rebooted. We had such a flood of people coming in saying, okay, $50, $100, that's an easy thing to do. We raised over $3 million as a result of just that campaign alone.
So any television company in the world could consider doing that. Any media company could make that same difference that you managed to achieve on the Oprah show.
Yeah, and we're desperate to talk to more of you about that. If I can do a plug, I'm John at roomtoread.org. I'm Wood at roomtoread.org. I'm John.Wood at roomtoread.org. Number 1 rule in the NGO world, don't make yourself hard to find. Please reach out to us.
This is the man who's going to open more libraries than any human being in the history of the world. John Wood, congratulations.
Thank you. Glad to partner with you guys. Thank you.
Just to give you an example of what can be done to improve literacy by some simple things that television has managed to do, can I just show you this film of a small project called Planet Read. It's the brainchild of a university lecturer in India. He wants to subtitle films, but also videos and soap operas, and he is proving by doing that that people are able to learn far more quickly the English language or any other language, and it's had a huge difference in school results in the country in which he is working. Let's just see this short film.
It's Sunday morning. Watching TV together is a ritual in many Indian villages. Today they're watching a film prepared by Planet Read, with songs subtitled in Gujarati, the local language. Planet Read now subtitles songs in 8 of the 22 official languages in India. They're broadcast each week for half an hour.
I dropped out of school at 14 and stopped reading. With this program, I'm learning to read again.
I can now even read the newspaper and explain what's happening to my children.
Today we are at a stage where national policy makers are actually interested in taking same language subtitling to all songs in all languages across the country. Now imagine this will actually be a huge revolution for reading in the country. We could just simply, with a switch, turn on reading for all these 700 million people, just like that.
Rich Katari wants to lead all of India, and perhaps the whole world, to literacy, one song at a time.
And one company that is doing even more, that has got a reputation for using its channels around the world to promote education, and has created learning centers in many countries, and I think is a model for some of the things that we're trying to get people to consider doing, is Discovery Communications. And I want you to welcome the Chief Executive Officer, David Yaslav, and I want him to explain some of the things that different media companies are doing. This is a great company. David, welcome to our audience. And just while we start to talk to David, let's see a film of what Discovery is doing in one part of the world.
There is a local adage which says that when I hear, I forget. But when I see and I do, I remember. And this is what the Learning Center has brought to us.
The center is really helping the children understand concepts that seem to be abstract, and it brings the world closer to the children.
The immediate impact was the active participation of the students in the lessons. And when they do that, you can be sure that the learning can really stick.
What is the fourth planet, Louisa?
Mars. I always come to school because of the videos. I don't want to miss any of them.
I thought that it was only men who loves science. But when I saw the woman, it gave me courage that I can also be one of them.
Each kid has something they have captured from the learning center in their mind, and as they leave that classroom, that is the picture, that is the concept they take with them.
When I grow up, I want to be a teacher.
I want to be a lawyer.
I want to be a journalist.
When I grow up, I want to be president of our country.
I wish to express our sincerest gratitude for making it possible for us to have such a wonderful learning center.
Thank you, Discovery Channel!
David, a brilliant achievement by Discovery. What's your ambitions for the learning centers for the future?
Well, we have 450 now, and we really approach it in two ways. One is we have the learning centers where we kind of dominate. We go in and it's really three parts. It's training the teachers, which is probably the most important. It's using the TV and educational content on the TV, as well as the computer. Sometimes we can get the computer, and sometimes it's just the TV. But we're also going into the classroom. In Egypt, we had an interesting experience. We've gone into a number of the schools in Egypt, and within 3 months of being in one of the schools in Beni Sharif, we had over 35 students came back after we got there. And that's part of talking to the teachers and working with them, having them engage with the parents. So I think it's an example of a media company, and we're a little bit different because part of Discovery's heritage is about education, it's about satisfying curiosity. But I think that all of us that are in the media business have an obligation to give something back. At Discovery, we have invested over $75 million in this initiative, and we've been at it for about 16 years. We've been able to get corporate sponsors to work with us as well, like Coke. And it's really trying to have an impact with our content. But it's not just video content. We're very serious about education. So we have the leading education business in the US in science. On a digital basis, we're in virtually every school that has a computer in the US. And so for us, it's part of our DNA.
And getting to the hard to get, getting to those kids that are excluded. Presumably the smartphone, all the new technology will make it even easier in future if we have the will to do it.
Yeah, I think that's true. As you go into Africa, one of the issues is getting the technology into a lot of those communities. So you have to work with what you have. And I would say probably the most important element is working with the teachers and figuring out some way to get the content, whether it's through a satellite, get some way to get the content into the village. You know, there are some villages where we started out, and it's still true today, we bring in a dish and you can download both video content, educational content. It almost becomes a community center where when it's not school, then the community is coming to share experiences. So,
and if others were working with you, you could achieve a lot more? There is an endless set of possibilities for getting technology and getting educational materials into schools.
Absolutely, and you and I have talked about the fact that if we could get more media companies and more companies like what you're doing with Gucci, what you're doing with getting the books. It's interesting, we have a joint venture with Oprah, and she's also very dedicated to education. If we could string these initiatives together and bring more with us.
Perhaps Oprah should be chairing this session, actually.
You're doing a good job.
Now, David, what do you think in the longer term? Look, we've got 61 million children not at school. We've got girls particularly discriminated against. We've got a target for 2015. Education aid by some governments is actually being cut, so we've got a crisis in the amount of monies available. Do you think the private sector, and particularly the media companies who are represented here, could together achieve a great deal more by coordinating their activities?
Yeah, there's no question that we can. You know, a very good friend of mine that used to run Viacom, Tom Freston, he had a belief, and the belief was that media, through TV, we could have more of an impact than armies. He's working now on a project bringing content into Iraq that shows women in a certain light that's much more favorable and empowering. We recently acquired a channel called Fatafit. It's a food channel, and it's through the Middle East. And we're very cognizant of the fact that how we present women, how we present our content, that in some ways is role models into the homes. Now, that's the TV in the home. But we're the most distributed. Discovery is cable channel in the world, and we have between 6 and 12 channels in 220 countries around the world. And all of that content is in language, and we have a significant amount of education content. And in each of those countries, we have media companies that are with us. And so the challenge, I think, Gordon, is country by country. How do we align the media companies together, whether it's running spots, whether it's taking content into schools, whether it's working with companies, but it's going to take a fair amount of effort to get a coordinated initiative. But I believe that the media companies, you know, around the world would be very open to it.
Well, the one audience and the one organization that can achieve it is people represented here today. This is a huge and unique opportunity if we can make something of it. Do you think that if we designated, like there's a Mother's Day and a Father's Day, a Children's Day, to focus on girls' and boys' education, that could make a difference?
I think it could, and I think that media companies could help to reinforce the designation of that. We'd have to come up with a clarity of what it is we're trying to accomplish so that everyone could understand it, and some good spots that would be fun and inspire people to understand what our mission is.
Do you think we could crowdsource a global fund so that public subscription through television supporting this around the world could make a difference? Because after all, $100 to educate a child, it makes it something that is within the reach of the ordinary citizen to help doing.
You and I were talking earlier. You know, in the U.S., there was we had a real challenge with Sandy that came in and destroyed a significant amount of the coastline of the Northeast. And one charity, just one charity, the Robin Hood Foundation, was able to take over a significant amount of channels in the U.S. across an evening. And they raised a large amount of money. If you thought about something like that as a Children's Day and you took it all around the world and we defined a goal, I think there's a great opportunity there.
Robert, you see this as a follow-through from what you're doing on June the 1st, a potential follow-through. If we could get different media companies in different parts of the world interested in combining together, then you have a world day rather than just an American or British or European day.
Absolutely, and I think the follow-through is really important, connecting the dots, bringing people together, as you've said, simplifying the message. That's so important so that people really can understand what the objective is and how they can help. But it's the coalition that counts, and it's bringing those forces together.
Is the major new development not this, that girls themselves are fighting for girls' rights and demanding that we support you? Is that not right? Yes. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, it's right.
And lots of other girls in your own country would join these campaigns?
Yes, they'll enjoy it and they'll be very happy about it.
And Ziauddin, you see this as a great possibility. Malala and the demonstrations that followed Malala's attempted assassination in Pakistan, but also in all parts of the world, shows that there was a movement of opinion almost for the first time when girls were prepared to stand up and be counted. And I saw it myself, and you've obviously must have seen it from the letters and the approaches that have been made to you wanting to make this a bigger issue.
I think that, as you said in the keynote speech as well, that there have been so many other atrocities in our countries, the blasting of the schools, the assassination of the opinion leaders. But this one incident has changed Pakistan. And it was not only for an individual, it was changed for the cause of education, for the cause of peace. And now we are very hopeful that as it is happening in Pakistan, it is happening all around the world. And the people are joining for the cause of education. But the people who are here in this conference, they are very much important. You see, media is already, they give information, but they have to go a little further. Information coupled with education. And I just ask, if they spare 1 hour in a day, 1 hour in a day, to the campaign of education, I think it will have a tremendous effect on the people. And I think we can't wait further, because these 61 million children will not be 61 million in 2015. There will be more then, because the population increasing each and every day. Yeah. And if they are not properly educated, they may be like a bomb for the rest of the world. Now we have to.
Let's have some questions from the audience to allow anybody in this audience. We've already said there's a timetable, a deadline, end of 2015. We've got to challenge 61 million children, most of them girls who are not at school. We've got an idea that we should link up together around the world, that there should perhaps be a Children's Day, a global fund. We should work with all the different organizations who are making huge inroads here. We'd like to hear any questions from the audience to any of us. And please come in now. Yep, thank you. There's a mic coming along here. Yeah, thanks.
I enjoyed your presentation and very laudable goals. How will you recruit around 2 million teachers in 2 years, based on, say, 1 teacher to every 30? And also, where is the UN's commitment specifically around this in terms of dollars to support this?
But we take 1 or 2 questions so we allow people to, and I will come back on that one. Yeah, just behind you. Thanks.
Thank you for your presentation. It's very impressive. I have a very practical question. I run a small production company with limited resources, and I feel I want to be part of this, but I would like to know how actively I can actually approach you and work with you. I'm not a multinational company.
Yeah, and we need you. So please stay with us at the end, and I'll give you the details. Any other question now before I come back to the teachers issue? Was there one other I saw? Down here? Down here, is that right? Yes. Yep. Thank you.
Hello. I just wanted to know, for countries where there's a lot of governmental pressure to sort of maintain the status quo, for example, in Pakistan, how do you plan on accomplishing your goal long term?
Okay, thank you very much. Do you want to say something about that, Ziauddin, Pakistan? Yeah, on the teachers' question, first of all, to allow others to collect the thoughts. There are a lot of teachers who are not employed at the moment in some parts of the world, and we've got to use these skills. There's a lot of people who've left teaching or who need new teaching qualifications to enable them to teach a modern curriculum. And of course, there's a lot of young people considering teaching, and we think that we can develop online courses in a very quick pace. We've been talking to what's called Coursera, which is the new online university, about them starting a teacher training college that would be an online college and available to offer courses either through the internet or actually through directly smartphones in different parts of the world. So we can scale up the training of teachers very quickly. We can recruit teachers in countries where teachers the numbers are deficient from other countries in the short term, and then train up teachers for the longer term. We can reopen some of the teacher training colleges that have actually been closed through lack of funds. So I do not see a difficulty over a 2, 3, 4 year period in getting the numbers of teachers that we want. What we don't have at the moment is the funding to do so. And if we had the funding to do so, we could expand pretty quickly. So getting people back in, getting people who are already teachers better qualified, getting people who are in the wrong country to go to the right country in certain cases, but also opening online courses for teacher training, that could make a huge difference. Pakistan?
I think that already, as I already mentioned you, that we have challenge of the security for the schools, for the children, and for the teachers. But after the assassination attempt of my daughter, Gordon himself went to Pakistan and he met our president. Then they had a very big conference here in France as well. And one good thing which has happened in Pakistan, that they have declared primary and secondary education free for all children and compulsory for all. And in the coming days, we will put more and more pressure on the government to do more because the education is a need of every country, of every child, but it is mostly needed in a country like Pakistan because there, as I already mentioned, that there are groups, militants, and who want to misguide and misuse the children. And if we don't give them bags, then they will be turned into bombs. So this is very much important. We are not satisfied which is being done, but we are hopeful. Gordon and the UN, we are all, I'm an education attaché for UK as well, and we will more and more pressurize our government to do more for education. And ultimately now we will have a new government, and we are very hopeful that its the top priority of the new government must be education.
www.educationenvoy.org to get in touch with us. There are people in the hall who will approach you who are ready to take your name, and anybody who is interested in hearing more. We would like to call a follow-up meeting of the companies that have expressed an interest today in being part of a global initiative. So there will be no shortage of people who will be after you if you've indicated that you're interested in helping in any way possible. Can we have some more questions, and then we'll try and sum up?
Share one more point about education that I think if UN can work on it, that in many of the countries, I think global values, I mean in curriculum, global values, the value of tolerance, the value of love and respect, it must be introduced. And it should be mandatory for all the countries. It should be compulsory for all the countries to introduce in their curriculums such values that we have pluralistic societies and we tolerate each other. So this is also very much important. There is so many flaws in the curriculum of the different states and national.
And increasingly online curricula, online courses are available in any part of the world for students in any other part of the world. And increasingly also, as I think you'll be able to say, John, the language barrier is being crossed by our ability to translate very quickly into different languages, almost instantaneously in some cases. Now, any other questions? Because I know that we're running out of time. We've got a question here. Is one there, I think?
Great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My question is, how are we making sure, how can we make sure that those books, those equipment, everything that we're trying to send overseas, how do we make sure that they're getting to the right people and they're being transferred to the right,
Thank you.
concerned people?
John is going to answer that one. There's another question, I think, just behind you. Yeah, thank you very much. And is there one more on this side? Yes, just across there.
Hi, we represent a company in Indonesia, and we have the eyeballs of millions of young women in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Just because we're talking about crowdfunding, I'd just like to add, even though the people who we engage with every day, they mightn't have money to contribute, but they would certainly like to contribute their support. So whatever program you develop, please remember the women that would like to support in other ways as well. Perhaps there can be clear global initiatives that are international, that just show that the whole world supports their rights to be educated, their rights to be equal. Simple messages so they feel that they're not alone, so they can stand up in a group comfortably. Even initiatives like that will help in our region. One of the ways the Pakistan government changed its decisions after Malala's assassination was there was a worldwide petition signed by 2 million people, and that was perhaps the first time that such a big petition had transformed people's views of education. So petitioning is one way of doing it, but we'll come back to that. And there's another question here. Yes, thank you. Have we got a mic coming this way? John, are you ready to answer the first question?
Yeah, shall I just do that while we're bringing the mic down?
Yeah.
I can answer it fairly succinctly. I think the important thing is, the premise of your question was like, how do we make sure that these things we ship overseas get there? I think the most important thing is, don't ship stuff overseas. It's really expensive. Nobody ever gives away a computer because it runs too well and it's too finely tuned, right? What our model is very much is one of local empowerment. So when we publish local language children's books, and I'm proud to say that this year, Room to Read will publish our 1,000th original title, tying into the UN. UNESCO,
another record, John. Well done.
UNESCO gave us their Confucius Prize for Literacy a couple of years ago for our local language. But what they recognized was that it was local authors, local artists, local content, local editing, local control. And so I'm really proud of that, because that's let us now put 12 million books into the hands of over 7.5 million children. But for us, our tipping point, that's with the Oprah's Book Drive, we didn't make it help us source more books in America or Britain and ship them over to Zambia or ship them over to Cambodia, but it's getting local authors and local artists and finding the Dr. Seuss of Cambodia, finding the J.K. Rowling of Tanzania, and giving them the platform to tell their story in a way that kids can really relate to, because those books are culturally relevant.
I hope that was helpful. And the other question here, I think.
Thank you very much for being here today. Two questions. Being the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, you would know very well that you must have a budget to see things done. What are you proposing in relation to a budget for your functions?
Yeah, I'm not, unfortunately, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom at the moment. The budget that we had was 15 billion for education over 10 years. And that is, I think, a budget that is being honoured, so that allocations are being made to individual countries that have got plans to deliver education. But I think what we've got to do is get a worldwide coordination of this, because individual countries can do this or that. But I think we need to be equal to what is a global task, getting these 61 million children the chance of having education by the end of 2015. And that demands the international coordination that we're talking about.
Okay.
Any other?
Yes, there's one here.
Yep.
There's one here.
Yep.
Up on the right. Okay. First thing is thank you all of you really for what you're doing, because I think education has a tremendous effect on other aspects of society, in emerging countries. So that's really important to solve this issue, because it's going to have lots of ripple effects. One comment that I had to make was that a lot of the initiatives you're saying need to have, local empowerment, local representative. But since we're all, a lot of people in the room are broadcasters, if you guys have something that you can give to us just to broadcast, we're ready to do it. I'm from Ivory Coast. If there's some content ready to put, I just hear it. So that's, within the solutions that you think about, if you have some content ready to show directly, it's easy for a lot of, I can't see any other broadcaster from an African country that's going to refuse if you have some content that can educate people. That was just a suggestion I want to make.
That's very helpful. Do you want to say something about that, David, about content being available?
No, I think it's a great example of things that we're not doing. We're taking our content on our channels, and we're taking our content into the schools, but we haven't reached out to local broadcasters in all the countries to say, you know, here's some educational content, or here's a message that we think could make a difference. I think, you know, one of the things that Robert said that's important is to, and it's probably, it may be country by country, but coming up with a clear message as to what we're driving toward.
Yep. Well, I would just say that, I mean, content is king today, and if you can distribute great content, and I think the power is in the room and in this conference, I think that is what we've got to connect, the content with the distributors in a powerful way.
I would focus on child marriage-free zones that are developing in all different parts of the world, but are unpublicized at the moment, where girls are getting together as girls and saying we are not going to be married off against our will and we want to continue our education. The global hotline so that trafficking can be exposed, and anybody who's moved from one country to another has a standard place that they know they can go to get help that is being widely advertised, focusing on girls and their battle to deal with discrimination, obviously, child labor and the global supply chain that is preventing girls and boys working. These are all issues where we can help, where these are stories that need to be told. And of course, the shortage of teachers and the need to build classrooms as well. We'll have one further question and then we'll bring it to a close.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Rhoda Wilson, and may I just say well done very much indeed for this wonderful presentation. My question is, could you tell us the top 5 countries where these 61 million children are?
Yeah, Nigeria is the country with the most children not at school. 10 million children in Nigeria, and there's no reason why that should still be the case. India and Pakistan have a very high number of children not at school. Afghanistan is still a country where very considerable numbers of girls in particular, but girls and boys are not at school. And then in Africa, we have Ethiopia, which has still got many, many children out of school. The DRC is one of the countries with large numbers out of school. Bangladesh has done a great deal, but it's still got a long way to go. And just covering these small number of countries is about half the children who are not in school. And it shows why, with an effort, we could actually make a difference over the next few years. Now, what was your final message to the broadcasters here today? John?
I just think we have to broadcast a message of asking people to be part of the solution. And I would say let's spend 20% of our time on talking about the problem and 80% of the time talking about the solution, and let people know that they can take action. That they not only can take action, they should take action, as we're in a battle, you know, against those who want to silence girls and those who want to silence boys. And it's a battle against apathy, it's a battle against ignorance, it's a battle against terrorism. And if we don't win this battle, shame on us.
Robert?
Our first milestone event is June the 1st. Anyone that would like to broadcast the concert, see Kevin Wall.
Curiosity?
What I would like to ask from people who know those girls who've dropped out of school is to encourage them to go back to school. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next time to have a platform with more girls than women. Is that right?
Yes.
And Ziauddin?
To be very short, I can say that Gordon usually talks about the urgency of the issue. I will use the word emergency. So we should declare emergency for education all over the world, because the challenge is very big. And it should be done as there is hunger, there is, I think it is such a big challenge that it should be dealt on emergency basis. And media role, I have seen myself, it can play a tremendous role. It can change the world. They change the governments. Believe me, they're so powerful.
Yep.
So to change, to bring a change for education, I think it's, they can play a very big role in it. And I request all of them, they join UN. And all this effort should be consolidated. Yep. It should be coordinated. And I volunteer myself for my lifelong to the cause of education.
David, thank you.
I was very taken. We've been in this journey for 16 years, and we're committed to it. But I was really struck by the number 61 million. It just really, it shook me. And it's something that, with the technology we have today, it's a moment in time where, one, I think that number is something that would get everybody's attention around the world. And two, that with the technology that we have today, it isn't in a lot of these countries, but it's becoming more and more portable, and we can get that technology there, that we're approaching the moment where we could really make a difference and do something about that number.
Can you thank what has been a brilliant panel? I'm very grateful to for being part of this. And can I just say, I've suggested you by way of conclusion, and you are probably the only audience that could ever achieve this goal, that we could create a global fund, we could create an annual Children's Day that is worldwide, we could create the annual children's song, the annual children's short story, the annual children's soap opera that is shown round the world, and we link up together the cause of boys and girls in education. You know, it's said as an individual, you can survive for 30 days without food, you can survive for 8 days without water, you can survive for 8 minutes without air, but you cannot survive for a second without hope. And what we need to do is to provide young girls and boys with hope. A few years ago, I was in Tanzania. I met a 12-year-old girl called Miriam. Her mother had died, her father had died. She herself, I'm afraid, had HIV. She was suffering, I believe, also from tuberculosis. And with no home of her own, she was being pushed from one extended family to another, no direct family to call her own. And you know 12-year-olds, they're excited about the future, they're full of joy, they're full of hope, they're full of sparkle about everything that is in front of them as they see their lives ahead. But when I looked into that young girl Miriam's eyes on that day, I saw nothing. They were as if already dead. She had no hope about the future. And yet, thanks to a project similar to the ones we've heard about today, this girl is now a teenager with education and with hope and the prospect of a job and a happy life. And we can now give hope, making what seems impossible possible for every one of the 61 million girls and boys who today are out of school but deserve the chance to have their right to education. Now, it was said in ancient Rome that when Cicero addressed a meeting, people turned to each other after he spoke and said, "Great speech." And then it was said in ancient Greece that when Demosthenes addressed a meeting, people turned to each other and said something different. They said, "Let's march. Let us march together for the cause of children's education, so that in the next 1,000 days, we achieve what may seem impossible today, but I tell you is possible with your support, that every single girl and boy in the world goes to school. And instead of developing only some of the potential of some of our children, we create a world where we can develop all of the potential of all of our children." Thank you very much.